Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Tara Arnold, and tonight I'm going to be consciously channeling Ascended Master St.Germain as he taps into the viewer's frequency, and I will do a reading from there. So we'll see what he has to say. And before we begin, I just want to mention our next live group channeling event is this weekend, Saturday, December 14th at 2 p.m. AST, that is Atlantic Standard Time. And if you do sign up and you can't attend, we do email out the replays to everyone. This is via Zoom, and I will be channeling the Ascended Masters. It's all about our hidden talents and gifts. So I hope to see you there, and anyone who is new to this channel, welcome. I'm going to start with St. Germain's bringing in, he said he did a video a few weeks ago, like last month. And what he's first showing me is there was programs running of I need somebody to fight for me, or I need somebody to save me. He wants to add a little bit to that because he's showing me that a lot of us cleared that. We no longer are running that program. It's like, oh, I don't need somebody to save me, or I don't need somebody to fight for me. But he's saying that there's some of us that as children, when you were going through a lot of trauma, because there's a lot of people that watch this this channel that have gone through really deep darkness, and especially in childhood, a lot of childhood trauma, PTSD. And so he's showing me that as children, when you were going through that trauma, you're so alone or felt so alone, and you would pray and ask God or the universe, source energy, for help. And you would say, send me somebody to save me. And there's some of us that have created this belief program that we told our inner children that somebody is coming to save you. Not only I need to be saved, or I need somebody to fight for me. It's somebody's coming to fight for us, or somebody's coming to save us. There is somebody coming. And the inner child is still running that program. So he's showing me like a movie, like a cartoon, Cinderella. So it's like you watch that cartoon and Cinderella gets saved by the prince. And then you start telling the inner child, oh, that's going to happen to us. God's going to send us a prince to save us. And some of us are still running that program. So what he's showing me is that if you move your inner child up to the year 2024, you can just do this in a visualization. If you don't visualize, you can just write it down. But tell your inner child that you're no longer running that program, and no one's coming to save you. No one is coming to save you. No one's coming to save you. Repeat this. No one is coming to save us. No one is coming to fight for us, because there's still a belief that my prince is coming, or somebody's going to come and rescue me. I need to be rescued. So that he's showing me as children, like praying, God, send somebody to rescue me from the situation, or send somebody to save me from the situation, or send somebody to beat up the bully that's bullying me. And there's no one coming. So he keeps repeating it. There is no one coming. There's no one coming to save you. And he says, the reason I keep repeating this is if you are running the belief program that someone is coming to save you, then you never have the power to create your own reality, because you're telling your inner child that the only way we can create a reality if somebody shows up to save us, or fight for us, or to rescue us, and it's not happening. So to get your power and to start creating and be a co-creator in your reality, that belief has to get shattered. So it's telling the inner child, no one's coming to save us. I was wrong. I thought we needed somebody outside of us to save us. I believed that we needed God to send somebody. There's nobody coming. I was mistaken. It's going to be us that saves us. It's going to be us that creates our own reality. So I'm going to move you up to 2024. And in 2024, there's no pain from the past. You don't have to keep reliving and looping this pain from the past. So you're making your inner child feel safe in 2024, and telling him, her, or they that there's no one coming. They just don't know that. So it's like, as soon as they realize, oh, no one's coming, then they stop searching for it. Your ego stops searching for it. The inner child stops yearning for it. Because if you're running that program, you can never create your reality, because it always is somebody has to come and do it for you. So this is just a little add-on to that last video. That was last month that he had said that. So for any of you that prayed and asked God to send somebody, keep repeating to the inner child, there's no one coming. And this will set you free on a lot of different levels. You might cry a little as you release that, because, you know, the feeling of finally being saved, that relief of it is what you've been searching for your whole life, he says. And then changing that belief, there's a little bit of grief coming up. I can feel a little grief in some hearts about that. Once you get past that, he's showing me it's going to open so many doors, so many doors. And he's also bringing in, there was somebody who had asked a question about, if I'm on a spiritual journey and I'm awakening, do I have to let go of my friends and family, or can I keep them in my life? Some people, they're saying that some people on their spiritual journey, they still have friends and family that they're keeping in their reality, and other people, they're letting go of people in their reality. And the answer is yes, you can keep people in your reality. It's up to you. It's a choice. They are an amazing reflection of where you're vibrating at. So anybody in your reality that is triggering you, like any family members or friends or people you grew up with or coworkers that trigger you, it's showing you where you're vibrating at. It means that there's something within you you haven't yet transmuted. So it's a huge gift to keep people in your reality so you can see where you're vibrating at. But what happens on some people's journey is that as you're awakening and you're seeing how you allowed other people to abuse you, you start to question and ask, why did I allow that? Why do I still have them in my reality? And then your inner child starts to say, I don't want to play with that person anymore, because now you have the awareness that they're hurting us, they're bullying us, but yet you keep them in our reality, and I don't want to play with them anymore. And so your ego says, well, I want to keep them in my reality. I don't want to listen to my inner child, because even though they hurt my inner child, I'm aware of it, and I'm going to see the gift in the reflection of that and just use it as a tool for my awakening. And I'm not going to judge them. And as they come into my reality and maybe are abusive verbally, I'm just going to stand in this now moment. I'm not going to judge it, and I'm going to use this opportunity to expand my consciousness. You're going to see the gift in it. But what happens sometimes is the inner child will say, well, if you're not going to love me, if you're going to feed their ego instead of loving me, because if that person comes to you and you're hanging out with them and you're still feeding their ego, the inner child might shut it down. And the way that they do that is they'll make you have physical pain. So every time that person comes to visit you, you might get a migraine. And so you're hanging out with this person and you get a migraine. You're like, oh, that's weird. So they leave. And then your inner child's like, I don't want to hang out with that person because they hurt my feelings, and I don't want to hang out with them anymore. And you're not hearing me, so I'm going to get louder. So then the next time they come to visit, you might get a migraine and neck pain. So now you have a migraine and neck pain. It's getting louder and louder. So some people in your reality that your spirit has decided that they are done with, that's what will happen, is your physical body will start to react. And then you have to make a choice. Am I going to get a migraine in order to hang out with this person, or am I going to begin loving my inner child and see that my inner child doesn't want to hang out with that person anymore? Am I going to start to love me instead of please somebody else? Because as people are in your reality that are abusive to you, the question comes up of, why are you keeping the people who abuse you in your reality? Now, there's some people that you could let go of, and there's some people you can keep. If you keep them in your reality, use that as a reflection of what you haven't transmuted within yourself. If they're throwing a lot of hate at you, you need to transmute hate within yourself. If they're disrespecting you, you need to transmute disrespect within yourself. How are you disrespecting yourself? How are you disrespecting your inner child? It's all a reflection. But if they are leaving, if you're like, no, I'm done with that person in my reality, and they are on their way out the door, you can do low contact or no contact. So some people, you might say, you know what, I've had this person in my life like for 40 years and it's abusive relationship and I'm done. So I'm going no contact. And you don't need an excuse. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to over explain yourself of why you stopped talking to someone. Or you can keep them in your reality and go low contact, where you just don't see them as often. But when you do see them and you get triggered by them, you use that to transmute dark back to light within yourself. Like everything's a reflection of you. So if you haven't transmuted something within yourself and there's people in your reality triggering you and you stop talking to everyone, you will recreate it somewhere else until you transmute that within yourself. So yes, you can keep your family and friends that you had growing up, but sometimes you get to a point where your inner child is had enough, or your higher self says it's time for them to leave. Once you stop getting triggered by them, the universe removes them if they're no longer a vibrational match. So what that looks like is if you are friends with somebody and they're very abusive and you keep them in your reality, and every time they trigger you, it's a great reflection of yourself. You can go in and work with your higher self, your inner child, work on your chakras, work on transmuting that back to love by not judging it, by seeing the gift in it. And then once you master that to the point where every time you see this person, they no longer trigger you. If they're not awakening, the universe says, well, they're no longer a vibrational match. They were in your reality to trigger you, but now you've transmuted that within yourself. You're loving yourself instead of hating yourself. Well, this person's still full of hate, then they're not matching that anymore. You don't need them in your reality, so the universe removes them. So you don't really have to do anything. The universe will move people out as you awaken. When your friends begin to leave because the universe is moving them out, celebrate. If all of a sudden there's a group of friends that you hung around with for 20 years and you're on your spiritual journey and they're not, and they all stop talking to you, or they're talking behind your back and they stop hanging out with you, celebrate. Because the universe is saying, we're moving this group out because you've expanded your consciousness to more love. Therefore, you're a vibrational match to more love. But this group of friends that you've been hanging out with aren't there. And so they're vibrating in more or less love. And so we're going to move them out and we're going to bring in new people into your reality that vibrate with more love, because you're loving yourself more. So now it's reflecting back to you. So you don't have to change your whole life instantly, but sometimes the universe will change it for you. So you can be present. Every single person in your reality is a reflection of you. Everything in your reality, it's like a hologram that you project out and it reflects back. It's showing you where you're vibrating at. You can keep whoever you want in your reality. I had a lot of friends that I stopped hanging out with on my journey, and I celebrated as I let them go, because I was moving into more going inward. And I get to a point where I don't need any friends outside of myself. Yes, I still have my husband. He's kind, he's loving, he's respectful, he's trustworthy, and he's a great support system, and we're on this journey together. when I first started along the awakening journey, he wasn't awakening yet. He started to awaken because I expanded my consciousness, and then his spirit decided, oh, okay, well, either I can begin to download those frequencies and awaken too, or I can leave and not awaken. And so his spirit decided to go on the awakening journey as well. So it worked out well for us in our situation. So you might find there's some people in your reality that spiritually awaken with you. But from what I've seen and what I've channeled from St.Germain, what he shows me is that most of our family is there to trigger us in order for us to awaken. So you create in your reality a family that's going to trigger you and friends that are going to trigger you so that you'll look in, because you wouldn't have any motivation to awaken unless somebody was triggering you. So what a beautiful gift to have so many people trigger you so that you'll go in, instead of needing validation from them to love you, needing them to love you, needing something outside of yourself. So it's all going to push you inward. And so, yeah, you can be on your spiritual journey and decide what you want, what you would like in your reality. I have let go of people in my reality, and I made a conscious choice to do that. So the universe just created somebody else because I hadn't yet transmuted that same frequency within myself. So I just recreated the loop until I mastered the frequency. And then they got removed by the universe. So when I try to control things, the universe says, okay, you can stop talking to that person, but you haven't yet mastered that frequency of, say, anger within yourself. And so we're going to bring somebody else in that has that same frequency to reflect back to you. So maybe I let a friend go that, was in my life for a few years that my inner child was tired of playing with. But then I'd create like a boss with that same frequency because I hadn't transmuted it. So regardless of who you're letting go and what you're trying to control, the universe is always going to send you where you're vibrating at. The universe is always going to reflect it back to you. It's a great awareness. Like, I use every interaction all day of where I'm vibrating at. If somebody leaves a rude comment on the YouTube, I say thank you. What a great gift, because now I know I've been rude to my inner child somehow. I'll go work on that. I'll go in and just ask her, like, how was I rude to you? How did I disrespect you? Because it was never outside of me. It was that I had maybe made a comment from my ego to my inner child, criticizing her for something. And so it showed up as a comment on YouTube. And I said, thank you, universe. I can use that. I'm going to go work with my inner child. I'm going to transmute that. And then the next few comments I have show up on YouTube are very loving and kind, because I transmuted it with myself. It's not outside of us. So that's what St. Germain is bringing in today. The people around you aren't going to change so that you can love them. You're going to change so that you can love them without judgment. So there's ego love and there's conscious love. And we're all in the game of ego love until we start to change the game, until our spirit starts to get louder than our ego. And then we have to see the truth. We have to see the false ego love, and it has to collapse. So the people in your reality that you believed would always love you and never betray you will end up showing you some kind of betrayal in order for you to stop seeking love from them. So going in, giving that love to yourself, and then it will reflect back to you. And many people will show up in your reality that respect you and love you, but by the time you get to that point, you don't need anything outside of yourself. So then it's like, oh, well, I'm having fun hanging out with myself and my inner child because now I'm loving myself. You let go of the attachment of needing friends and family outside of you. So it's not like you have to change anything and stop talking to people. It's letting go of the attachment to them. It's letting go of the ego attachment to them and not judging them and just giving love from your heart. Right now, it's every judgment is hurting us, because if you visualize your auric field, so St. Germain's bringing in this picture in my third eye, and he's showing me it's like everyone's auric field, and it goes out quite far. Your auric fields like extend out quite far. And he's showing me that when somebody has a judgment, like, I don't like what that person just did, or I don't like that person, it shoots out that frequency towards them. But that frequency is yours, so it doesn't leave your energy field. So what it does is it's like it hits the edge of the auric field and comes back and smashes back into you. It re-loops. So you might send hate out to that person, and then their ego says, oh, there's some hate. I can start channeling that in and get this person really upset. So they grab a little bit of that frequency and start snowballing it into the reality of the person that you're sending hate to. And so their frequency of hate, because you sent it out to the universe, they start to channel, their ego uses that frequency to start channeling more hate, to make, you know, their reality more ego-based. The ego loves it when people shoot out hate, because then all the egos around it can start channeling in that frequency and just get everybody worked up. You see this in crowds of people, you know, fighting for something, and it's just the angrier they get, the more anger multiplies. But it also doesn't leave your field completely. It goes out to the edge of your field, and other people can start to channel it in to their reality and have more hate in their reality. But what you shot out is also staying in your energy field and coming back to you. So it's like it's going to the edge of your auric field. The other person beside you, their auric field's there. Their ego says, oh, there's some hate coming towards me. I'm going to start channeling that. So it grabs it, starts to grow it, starts to expand in ego consciousness. And then that same hate slams back into you. And then it's like hurting you. That's why it's so important not to judge, because you're only hurting yourself, because nobody outside of you is existing in your reality. It's your reality. It's nobody else's reality. So anything that you say or do is going to be looping and reflecting back to you. It has to, because nothing's outside of you. We're in this hologram, this illusion of that there's something outside of us, but every single person is having an individual experience in their own reality. And so when your neighbor throws hate at you, it's the same thing. It's going to loop back to them, because it's their reality they created. So all our spirits, so we're just floating around wearing these human costumes. But if you took off all the human costumes, you would just see billions of spirits just floating around and spreading conscious love and channeling conscious love and expanding in their consciousness. But we put on the ego costume, and it keeps us in this limited reality space. So anything that we shoot out, it's going to shoot back at us. If you send love out, it's coming back. So you might send love and prayers to Ukraine for their war, or Russia. You might send out love to all the soldiers that are in the war. And that love goes out, and they can download it, but the love also comes back to you. So anything going out, he shows me that as soon as it hits the edge of the auric field, it channels back as well. The people on the other side that you're sending it to, their spirit or their higher self or their physical body, mental body, emotional body, ego body, so the mental body's consciousness, the ego's in the mental body's consciousness, it can start channeling it. If it's from the ego, or if you're sending it out from your heart, it can start channeling in from the heart-centered consciousness. So their spiritual body can receive. But it always comes back to you as well. So it's not going to leave your energy fields. That's why it's so important. Like, what am I judging here? You know, you can sit there and talk to somebody that you don't like without judgment. Well, how would I do that? St.Germain saying, somebody's asking, well, how do I do that? If I don't like this person, how can I not judge them? And just realizing that they are you and you are them. If you like yourself, they're a reflection of you. They're not outside of you, because everything is one energy. So we have this illusion that we're wearing these costumes and that people are outside of us. But if you took off the costumes, it's consciousness, a spiritual ball of light. And as it expands, it becomes one with every other spirit on the planet. It's like one energy. So when you're choosing, St.Germain showing me, it's like when you choose what's in your blueprint, what your personality is, what kind of life you're going to have, what kind of life you're going to live, you take aspects from other people's lives and history and put them into your blueprints. So if you want to be a painter in this lifetime, you might take aspects of Da Vinci and put it in your blueprint. So you take a spiritual aspect of Da Vinci and his talent of how to paint, and you put it in your blueprint. And then you might say, okay, well, I also want to write a book. So maybe you'll grab a frequency of it from an author in history and put it into your blueprint. So it's like we're all one energy, and each life experience we're having like different facets of each other to make up one individual experience. But everything ultimately comes from one energy. It's like one energy. So how do you stand there and talk to somebody you don't like without judgment? Is remembering that they are you. See them without the physical body. If they had no physical body, would you still not like them? Or if you just saw their spirit of God, source energy floating there, do you like source energy? Are you going to throw judgment at God, source energy? So take off their costume and ask to feel the God within them. Because once you feel the God within them, you'll feel that divine love that you haven't felt on planet Earth by connecting your consciousness with the consciousness within them. And you can't judge. Once you feel that, you can't judge it. So you can sit there and talk to somebody that you don't like, but you don't have to judge them as you do it. You can send them love from your heart and feel the consciousness of their heart. And just let go of all that ego stuff. Their costume, just take off their costume. You know, everyone's soul is beautiful underneath everyone's spirit. So he shows me it's like your spiritual body is made up of like thousands of fractals of light frequencies. And then you have an experience of being an individual on planet Earth. And at the end of this lifetime, you take that spiritual body and you add it to the soul. And the soul carries all the memories from all the past lifetimes. But in order to have an individual experience in this lifetime, then we forget all the soul information. Now, some of you are remembering as you awaken because you're reconnecting with all those past lifetimes. But for the majority of the people on the planet, they aren't aware of their soul and all the experiences they've had. So that's what he's bringing through today. You're not alone on your journey, he's saying. So he's saying, remember, it's a game. We're just playing a game of the dark and light. And anybody in your reality that is there to bring the dark is showing you a reflection of that dark you haven't transmuted within yourself. He's bringing in another question that somebody had left on YouTube, and he's saying that they asked me, Tara, how do you transmute and not be afraid of the dark? It's because I'm the dark too. I'm both the dark and light, because everything's one energy. There's nothing to be afraid of when you are everything. So as I expand my consciousness and awaken to remembering I am everything, then the dark is light that is forgotten. It is love. So it's like I'm looking at the dark and it just doesn't remember that it's love. So I'm just telling it, oh, you're love. I don't have to be afraid of you anymore. The light is always more expanded than the dark, because the dark forgets its love, so it's kind of a lower vibration. So you surround it with your light and it instantly transmutes back to light. And just with your intention, you can visualize it or just put out the intention, it instantly transmutes. Now, a lot of times when I'm not channeling, I'm in the third dimension. I'm deep in the ego with everyone else. I'm not fully awakened. And so I still have, things that frighten me, or PTSD, and I'll go into fear. And sometimes I'll get caught up in it, so it's like, okay, I'll get it next time. So it's not beating yourself up when you forget who you are. We're all in third dimension. We're going to forget who we are. We're going to forget who we are as consciousness because we're functioning and living in third dimension. Like I just had a knock at the door and I got so scared because somebody knocked at the door. I had like a PTSD. I locked the doors. I called my husband. He was out and he's like, it's me at the door. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I was doing this video and I went in to set it up and sit down and get ready, and then I created a fear in my reality before I started channeling to show me that I still am running ego programs. So the most important thing to do in that situation is not to criticize yourself, because that's when you need the most love. So when you are getting startled and go into your PTSD and fright and flight, fight or flight response, give yourself the most love. That's when you need it. When you make a mistake in third dimension, that's when you need the most love. When you drop something on the floor or break something, that's when you need the most love. That's not a time to criticize yourself, because it'll put you further back to third dimension. So yeah, it's time that we stop being afraid of the dark, because we're both the dark and light. It's on the same scale. You just slide the scale up. At one end is darkness, one end is light, one end is hate and one end's love, one end is up and one end's down, one end's in and one end's out. Like, it's always on the same scale. You're just sliding it. Where's the vibration? Well, here's the deepest darkness and here's the greatest light. So all I have to do is slide the greatest light up and surround the darkness. Or if the darkness is coming at me, I just envelop it with my light, because I am both. It's not outside of me, the scale. If I'm afraid when somebody knocks on the door, that's still in my head. It's not outside of me. My fear is in here. And there's a scale in my mental body's consciousness. In third dimension, ego, you have your id, ego, and superego. And the superego says, I'm going to get really loud right now, and I'm going to scare you to the point where you're going to panic and have a panic attack and go into fight or flight. And sometimes that superego wins, you know, it gets louder. So the ego's the decision maker, and then the superego really tortures us. So you want the ego to be the decision maker and the superego to not be in battle with it. So just doing spiritual alchemy with St.Germain, calling in the violet flame, balancing the energy of the id, ego, and superego by writing on a piece of paper, holding it in your hand, and commanding that all three energies be balanced for your highest good with the violet flame to transmute it back to love, and then they'll work in harmony. So the id is that impulse control. I know I've said this in many videos. It's that impulse control. It's like when we're impulsive, all our addictions. And then the ego is like a decision maker, like don't touch the hot stove. And then the superego says touch the hot stove and see what happens. So you want them working in harmony so that the superego isn't always torturing you. Like tonight, when somebody knocked at the door, my superego was louder than my ego. If I had been an equal balance of my id, ego, superego, my ego would have said, somebody's knocking at the door, get up and answer it. And I would have got up and answered it. But instead, my superego was louder. So it said, somebody's knocking at the door, you're about to be attacked, run and hide, lock the doors. So I did that. And then I got rational and I said, what am I doing? So I called my husband in this panic, and he's like, it's me, I'm at the door, I forgot my key. So I was like, oh, okay. I said, I was in here having a panic attack because my superego was louder. So don't criticize yourself if your superego gets louder. That's the message from St.Germain today, is that we're both the dark and light, and to embrace both parts of us. So instead of getting upset and staying in that vibration of the PTSD from somebody knocking on the door, I laughed about it. That laughter brought me back to the now moment, and then I could be present again. So there's so many gifts in both the dark and light, and yeah, have fun with it. Thanks for joining us today. St.Germain's pulling back now, so I will finish up here. I hope to see you at the live event, and we will see you next time.